Oh, wow. What is up? Darius Drama recap. I didn't even see what happened last night after he got in a couple fights, apparently. Did you swap your GPU for the 4090? Okay. What is this? Pro tip.
You get excited. Do you love baby keys, but you have bazongas like me? And you're worried that if you jump around, you get excited, that you might just, be patient zero in a very embarrassing moment. Grab yourself a ponytail and wrap that sucker back. I know it's already small, but stay with me here. We're wrapping it around, we're tucking it in. Got a little cute little tucked back. Now look, you can be as excited as you want. And there.
Okay. Bro, Darius is on a path right now to either getting arrested or fucking killed. Jesus. Somebody emailed me yesterday. A god emailed me yesterday, okay? I don't get very many gods that email me. I don't know if I ever would have found this out on my own. On NVIDIA graphics cards, apparently, internally, NVIDIA graphics cards have 4 video heads. I don't know what that means, but they have 4 video heads. Or I don't know what a video head is, but this is why if you have a graphics card with 5 or 6 plugins, it doesn't matter. You still, you can only have 4 outs active at a time. Apparently, when you have a monitor plugged into the display port, if you have the display port driving a really high resolution monitor at a really high frame rate, I guess somehow what NVIDIA does is they use something called DSC. So I don't even know what that stands for, but it combines 2 of these video heads into one in order to drive a really high resolution, really high frame rate monitor. So having, display stream compression, there you go. So having 2 of these monitors plugged into the graphics card meant that 4 video heads became 2 video heads, meaning none of the other outputs would work. And so in order to drive all 3 of these things, I just had to turn one of my monitors from DisplayPort version 1.4 to 1.2. And now it all works. Jesus. What a weird fucking... At no cost to anything? Well, no. Now, this bottom monitor only runs at, I think, 100 hertz or something. But my top one runs at 240. I don't know what the asterisk means. If I do 120, I don't know if the monitor will try to up the DisplayPort version. Maybe it can, I don't know if it can do 129, maybe. You weren't willing to lower it yesterday, why not? Because lowering it doesn't fix the problem. You have to turn down the DisplayPort version. How do you do that? I don't know. There's an option on the monitor. Wow, hello.
Hello. How's it going?
It's going great now.
Okay, so I have this kind of, let's do a quick little setup. I am going to have all of the timers and the polls being streamed to a camera.
Mm-hmm.
So, and then the third person, or the person who's actually debating, is going to come in and have their camera on. So I figured we could probably get you might have to move some stuff around for an overlay, I'm not sure. So do you want me to bring somebody up and they can get their stuff queued?
Yeah, sure. Link me the thing too, and I can just put it on my main screen here or whatever.
For what?
Whatever overlay thing you're talking about. If you give me the browser window, I can just open it on my computer here.
Oh, so I'm streaming it to my a virtual camera on Discord. So this.
Amazing.
So basically, you're gonna have it a 3-camera setup.
Yeah. Oh, okay.
Let me drag Ivory Fool up here. He's gonna be our first one. I'll just do. Yeah, I'll drag him up and then I'll do the intro. Hey, Ivory Fool, let's go ahead and get your camera on so that Destiny can get the overlay going correctly.
Boom, boom. How you doing, buddy?
Hey, what's up?
I asked you first.
I'm doing good.
Oh, cool. Okay. What's your name a reference to?
I kind of tried to come up with an online name, and I think I'm really interested in academia, so it's kind of like the Fool of the Ivory Tower, because I think I want academia to be more accessible to people.
Yikes. Mega cringe. I'm just kidding. Okay, that's cool.
While he gets that set up, I'm going to kind of just go through how we're going to do this time around. Me doing the timer and polls will hopefully make it to where Destiny doesn't have to worry about that kind of stuff. It'll be a little bit smoother. We're going to kind of change the formatting. So I have 3 timers. You guys will eventually see it in the chats. I've got 3 timers. Everybody is going to get a 1-minute opening. And then if they choose to use the whole minute or not, it's kind of whatever. Everybody basically gets 7 minutes. So they'll get a 1-minute opening. There'll be 5 minutes of like basically completely open debate. And then there'll be 1 minute where we'll kind of do almost like a ramping down of everything / that's when we're going to do the poll. So the poll will extend the person an additional 6 minutes if they pass through the poll. And if they don't, we're just going to move on to the next person. I've got a little order sheet here so that the people that are down in the queue can know when they're going to be coming up. But it's basically going to be people are going to be debating Destiny's semi-meme-ish article that he wrote.
It's not
basically, a meme. It's not a meme. Basically talking about how much better it is to rent than to be a homeowner. Most people know Destiny's opinions on homeownership and what's wrong with homeownership versus like all the investment vehicle stuff, all that kind of stuff. So kind of giving everybody their chance to debate him on that or / his meme-ish kind of formatting of saying that. But if everything's all set up on your end, Destiny, I don't know if you want to do chat on your screen or not, or are you going to be good to go?
I'm good to fucking go.
Okay. So what we'll go ahead and do then is we will start with the opening, and anybody that's listening that is on the mod teams for the chats, we're just going to link it in that regular channel again. I already linked the first poll, so when we get to that last minute, I'm going to butt in every once in a while just to let people know that polls are up, things like that, just because that was also something that was a little bit less smooth last time. But for the most part, I'll stay quiet. And Ivory Fool, go ahead and do your opening statement.
Sure, thanks, Hobbit. So housing encourages desirable pro-social behavior that renting does not. When people buy equity and a long-term commitment within their family and community, especially with low-interest fixed-rate mortgages, they have more stable relationships, better outcomes for children, have more civic engagement, and are more likely to become small business owners. If we are discussing this issue in the context of politics, we ought to talk about aggregate effects and societal benefits as opposed to individual cost-benefit analysis. If it's questionable whether or not owning versus renting is better financially for people that plan to live in the same place for the long term, that means there's a major housing supply problem that we need to solve, not that we should encourage more demographics to rent.
Let's run them down one by one. What was the first point you brought up?
All right.
You said pro-social behavior?
Yeah, but
Do you live in a house?
It's the 4 things.
Yeah, I know.
I do, yeah. Oh, no, I rent it, but yeah, I do live in a house.
You're in a house. How long does it take you to get to your neighbor's house?
Like a minute?
Guess how long it takes me to get to the apartment next door to me? Like 10
Like 30
seconds.
seconds?
Yeah, try
Okay.
10 seconds, okay? How is the house more pro-social? Explain.
Well, so it creates like more stable relationships between just a couple. So if you have people that are living in a house, like it's probably more likely that they're going to be in a more committed and long-term relationship, especially if we're looking at like divorce rates and stuff like that. And one thing that is interesting that I found was women are way more likely to be single homeowners. And so I think just in general, women really care about homeownership more than men. And if we are looking at a society where there's a lot of incel behavior, or that's becoming more of an issue, or men are becoming more and more dispirited, I think enabling or encouraging people and enabling them to own their home can help bridge that gap and make men more desirable to women if we agree that that's an issue.
Wouldn't it be
That-
better
that's
to just get
part of the
a
issue.
what would be more impressive to a woman is you're an incel guy who managed to buy your shoddy, disgusting $175,000 house, or you just said fuck it and you rented on like the 34th floor, okay, a really nice apartment with a nice view, with no mortgage
I don't think it should be about being
obligation.
impressive or not.
Oh, what's
I
it
think
about
it's more
then?
about like giving people the opportunity to like have this like milestone of commitment, and encouraging people to go through that and making sure that everyone has access to that.
Well,
I think
milestone
that's-
of commitment. The fact that you can fill
Yeah.
out a mortgage application.
No, the fact that you like agree we're going to own this house together
Oh,
and that we can do that.
I mean, you can sign a lease together, can't you?
Yeah, but that's not. It's way less of a commitment. That's the point.
Okay, so you think that knocking somebody up is a good way to further the commitment in a relationship because now you have a kid together? You think that's healthy?
If you agree ahead of time, then I mean I think a big part of it is that men don't commit to women as much anymore.
Okay.
I don't really want to get into that too much, but like that's the that's kind of like the idea is not that commitment itself is good. The idea is that if you have like you want people to have options to commit to each other.
Don't you think buying a home together kind of eliminates those future options? Isn't that like a really big lock-in? Like, wouldn't somebody be more
it's
likely
not-
to stay in a
it's not
bad
about the
relationship
game.
if they bought a house together?
No, I'm saying like this is a thing that they have an option to do. And if home ownership is inaccessible to people, then they don't have that option. It's not about having this carrot dangling. That's not what
Sure,
I'm
but we're not talking about having the option to rent a home. We're talking about whether it's good to execute on that option of renting the home.
No, but so that's what I'm saying. That I started off by saying that we want to look at the societal benefits, not the individual cost benefit analysis. So like we should make it more desirable for people to want to own a home because owning a home has all these benefits, including encouraging people to be more entrepreneurs, encouraging people to be civically engaged. And I think that's a pretty big one that we probably both agree is really important right now, that like people just aren't reading the news.
True. But
That like
I feel like you can do these things and be in an apartment. I don't think you need, like, for instance,
course.
I voted and I'm civically engaged, but I'm in an apartment.
Sure.
I know of
I mean-
friends, at least one, who owns a home and is not civically engaged and he didn't vote. So now what?
I'm saying on aggregate, like if you look at the studies that people that own homes and you control for all the socioeconomic status, everything like that, owning a home increases the number of people that are willing to be entrepreneurs. It increases civic engagement. Like, and the mechanistic hypothesis is that if you're committed to a community, you're more likely to want to improve that community. And so like if you own equity in a community, like that's literally what you're doing when you're buying house and land.
Yeah,
You're
but couldn't you also
directly
just like
incentivized.
couldn't you buy a condo?
Sure. I mean, the point is owning the home, not versus renting.
I thought the point was
I mean-
homes versus apartments. Wait, so you're saying renting a home wouldn't qualify in this world?
Yeah, because you don't benefit from the property value going up.
Oh, so this is all about just how does benefiting from the property value going up? That's the thing that causes all the pro-social cohesion and the entrepreneurship and everything?
I'm sure that's part of it. I don't claim that that's the entire part of it. I think that'd be foolish.
Really?
Yeah, just to say that the only reason why people are more civically engaged is because they want their house to be worth more.
Okay, sorry. This article was a half-meme article. Okay, I'm trying to figure out how serious the level of engagement is. Wait. let me fucking lock the fuck in.
Said it wasn't a meme, but the poll is going out. Okay, so in all the chats, the poll is going out. Go ahead.
Where am I
Did you
going
want me
from?
to?
Oh. Yeah, you're just wrong. Sorry.
On what?
On everything.
Based on what?
On my feelings.
Do you want me to show you like some sort of citations?
Yeah, give me one
some of
citation.
these
Go ahead and show me your first citation. What do you got?
Okay. So using a large U.S. individual level survey data set over the 1996 to 2006 period, we showed that a 10% increase in home equity raises the probability of transition into entrepreneurship by 14%.
Oh yeah. How many of those people lost their? When did that When did that data set end?
In 2006.
Yeah. How many people lost all their businesses and everything the next year, huh?
So then we should make it less likely that people lose, like less volatile. Like we can create
I
policy
agree.
that.
Do you know what reduces volatility? Renting versus owning, because then the volatility is all shifted onto the landlord, and I can just pay a smooth monthly payment.
I mean, the whole point is that in that period where people didn't really think that this was a possibility of foreclosure, the people that own their home were more likely to be entrepreneurs. So
the people who felt like they had absolutely no risk to take whatsoever felt like they could invest in businesses. That's not surprising. That's because they had no risk, because the banks and the financial system for the housing market was crazy.
Next thing you're currently getting owned in the marketplace.
Give me the
of
next
ideas.
next
This
citation.
time has been extended.
Next citation.
Okay.
This one better not end at 2006.
So let's see. Which one is this? Right. So we found that access to entrepreneurial bank credit is easier for home-owning entrepreneurs at both the intensive and extensive margin. We saw that during the crisis, the gap actually widened between homeowners and renters with respect to their access to credit, despite the lower market value of the homeowner's collateral. So, I mean, even in the case where their housing, like the housing market is collapsing, banks are still giving preferential treatment to keep businesses afloat to homeowners rather than renters. And I'm assuming they controlled for, just the total number of like debt to asset ratio and stuff like that.
Oh yeah, you would make that assumption, wouldn't you? Because it helps your argument, doesn't it?
It'd be ridiculous to like publish that without controlling for that.
Really? What year does this study cut? Where's the data set from?
I'm thinking it's looking at the global financial crisis.
Oh, so the whole world. They studied the entire world.
No, I was talking about the time period.
Yeah, but what housing market and credit market was it talking about?
Entrepreneurial activity in the Netherlands.
Wow. The Dutch?
I mean, look, like when you're talking about like scientific research, it's not like these things don't happen immediately, right? Like,
yeah, but do you think Dutch people and Americans are comparable?
Probably.
Let me introduce you to a concept called
certain aspects.
Ethnic homogeneity. Have you ever heard of it before?
Sure.
And social cohesion? I'm just kidding. Okay.
So, I mean, the point is that
I'm responding to your point. Okay.
Okay.
How would owning a home give you access to more credit? Were these people taking out like credit based on their homes, or?
Yeah, yeah. Use the equity that you have on your house.
Isn't the study just saying then that people that have money or have assets have access to credit? Wouldn't that make sense?
Right, but the
like they could have any other asset or class theoretically, and they would still have access to the same credit, right? Like instead of owning a home, let's say they dumped all that money into a 401k or whatever, they'd still have access to credit. They just happen to be dumping their money into a house, right?
Yeah, and the mere fact that people own the home makes them more likely to be an entrepreneur.
Yeah, that makes sense. But that's just because of the I feel like
with same credit to debt ratio.
With the same credit to debt. Oh, with the same net worth?
Yeah, because you control for socioeconomic status.
I guess what I'm trying to understand is how does like if I've got $50,000 of equity in a house versus $50,000 of equity in some kind of other asset class, I don't know why having the house gives me special access to credit that I wouldn't have otherwise.
I don't think they were saying it gives you special access to credit. I think they were saying that that type of asset, that type of collateral is more preferable to banks.
Okay. That might be true. But that's a shitty reason, I think, to own a home.
Well, so I'm not saying that's why I'm not arguing on the individual level.
No, I understand you're not arguing on the individual level. I can understand that it might make sense that banks might prefer loaning against housing collateral versus other types of collateral. I don't know how high your portfolio needs to be to have a to take out a loan against, like, if you have like stocks or whatever. I will say one of the scary things about utilizing credit. Well, actually, wait, hold on. When you talk about access to credit, are people taking out loans against their home to like start businesses?
Yeah.
Is that a preferential idea, or is that a good? Do we want to encourage that type of thing?
I think so. Because I mean, it's
Please
all connected, especially if it's a local business.
Why do you guys keep? Oh my God! Hold on. Let me turn my AC down. Hold on. Okay, hold on. Let me lock in.
Oh my
okay?
God, we're pausing the time. We're pausing the time.
I
He's
gotta lock in.
throwing.
Hold
He's
on.
getting
Fuck you.
absolutely destroyed right now.
Shut
Chat,
up.
you guys are seeing this. He's literally leaving his desk. He's getting blown out by the Ivory Fool. Everybody can see it.
Okay, I don't know why you brought
Okay.
the fucking Chinese. Okay, try hard fucking student today. I can't wait till Trump gets rid of you, motherfuckers. Okay. Let me lock the fuck in. I'm locking in. I'm locking the fuck in. I'm locking in now. I'm locking in.
The 1 minute.
Yeah.
Go.
Restart it.
Go.
Okay. My understanding is businesses. My understanding, by the way, is the polite and humble way of me saying, I know this is a fact, but I don't want to present it that arrogantly, okay? My understanding is
Go for
that
it.
businesses have a very high rate of failure, okay? If a friend came to me and he said, hey, I want to get credit for a business. I want to take out a loan from the bank, and I know just the way to do it. I go, oh, really? What are you going to do? So, I want to take out a loan against my house. I would say, that's fucked, bro, because now if your business fails, not only are you exposed on the business side, you've opened yourself personally up to liability, because if your business fails, you're going to lose your business, and now you're going to lose your fucking house. Your life is over. Would you really recommend somebody to take out some type of loan against the value of their house when new businesses have a fail rate of like 90% over 5 years?
So, I mean, I think we both agree that renting, in terms of like the actual living conditions, aren't really all that different. So it's like if someone loses their house and they have to rent now because they took on this risk, like I think we both kind of agree that like, you know, that's fine.
No,
like, they don't
it's not
necessarily need a
fine.
house.
Wait, that's my argument. It's not fine. If I'm in an apartment and I can't pay my lease and I lose my apartment, what happens? I can't pay my lease. I get kicked out. If the landlord is a huge asshole, he probably doesn't give a fuck, but he could take me to small claims court, you know, for some part of the lease, maybe. But if I can't afford my house, whoo, we're in big trouble. I have to sell the house. I have to make up the difference in whatever the equity and the borrowed amount is. So let's say I've got a house, $1 million house. Let's say I have $50,000 in equity. Let's say that I borrow out $50,000, you know, against the equity. Now I have no equity in the house. And then let's say that I go upside down on my, no, I don't have to go upside down even. Let's say let's say that my
is not like taking a long-term stock option or like a short-term stock option where you don't just like leverage everything and then lose more than you put in.
Well, what do you think the risk is? That's why it's risky to start a business. If you lose it, you lost.
You can lose what you put in, but you're not going to lose more than what you put in.
True.
Usually.
Well, true. But if you're starting a small business, okay, not all of us are, you know, Big Bucks McGee over here, all right, in the ivory tower of academic elitism, okay? Some people, when they start a small business, they lose that small business. It's not like they have tons of other revenue streams to pull money from. Like if you... In my mind, there's no
job.
They go find a job. In my mind, a person who is, I don't mean to say this word meanly, but a person who is desperate enough to leverage their house in order to get a loan, an SBA loan to start a business, is probably not the kind of person who has a bunch of capital available to them, such that if the business fails, they're totally fine. And now they've got their mortgage payment and they've got to pay off this HELOC or whatever other type of loan they took out against the value of their house. I don't know if that's a great way to start a business, is borrowing against your...
by foreclosing the house.
That's a big deal, because now you've got to foreclose.
It's a big deal, yeah, but it's not life ending. Like you can just go rent, like you said.
Yeah, but now you're renting with a foreclosure under your belt, so your credit is going to be fucked, and you run the risk of, depending on what
Okay. I don't know if foreclosure is the right word, right? Because if you're just releasing the house, if you're selling the house and you're paying off the loan, like you're not. I don't think that hits your credit. Like it just means.
I'm so sorry. Foreclosure is when you default on the loan and then the bank repossesses your house to make your shit straight. You mean just selling the house?
What I mean is like the business failing, and you have to like, you know, give up the venture, right?
Yeah,
I don't think.
But the problem is so anytime, one of my biggest criticisms of using homes as wealth vehicles is you lack any diversification. You are highly invested in a single asset class and truly in a single asset, right? So if you're forced to sell your home at a non-preferential time because you're trying to make good on a loan, you might be completely fucked. So you could be upside down on the loan. Maybe your home has lost a little bit of value. So not only are you selling the house now at a loss, which would suck depending on how early you are in the ownership cycle of it, you're selling it at a loss. You have to make up the difference to the bank. You might do that on a payment plan or something. And you're and then you're also like trying to find a place to rent and live on top of that. It's just you're exposed to so much more risk on owning the home. Generally, the risk isn't a big deal, but if you're starting to leverage the risk, what? Go ahead.
You're conflating entrepreneurship with like home ownership as one investment vehicle, right? Because the thing that is putting you under is not the fact that your house price is going down. What's going under is the fact that your business failed. So like that's completely separate from how good of an investment the house is. And I also
correct. Wait. I agree with you. One thing at a time. I agree with you that those two things could be separate, but you wanted to connect them in the form of arguing that owning a home gives you access to more credit. So I'm attacking that argument.
So I don't know exactly what the mechanism is behind why do homeowners be like
have access to more credit?
Yes. Well, so that's one possible explanation, but the I don't think that there's been enough studies on this direct connection between entrepreneurship and homeownership that we can definitively say what exactly the causes and mechanisms are. But I think just
we can ditch it then if you want. We can eject that argument.
Well, I mean, I still think there's enough studies that that people have noticed this effect and have articulated it. And
I'm sure you can have access. No, I mean, I agree with you, right? We could also do an access, we can do studies showing that, like that in 99% of circumstances, men could kill their wives if they wanted to. But that doesn't mean I would say that this is something that should happen, right? Like, I'm sure there are a lot of studies showing that homeowners have access to more credit than non-homeowners, even all else equal, because a house is, like you said, it's probably a preferential collateral vehicle because you know the person has to use it, right? Like if you're going to take out a loan against your home, I know where your home is. I can always go and repossess it. It's a secure loan, right? I agree with that. I just don't know if that is anything that moves me much in the direction of home ownership, because the types of loans that you would be securing with the equity in your home are things that I would almost always almost universally recommend against doing. And I feel like most people would. If somebody's like, "Oh, I'm starting a new business. I took out a loan against my house to do it." It's like, "Whew, that's not a great one," I think.
I'm not following the logic.
Real quick. Go ahead, and this will be kind of our closing. Ivory, very good job, but go ahead and bury Destiny one last time.
Fuck you.
So I think that, as we're thinking about housing and it's like becoming a broader and broader political issue or a more hot topic, and people are focusing on how we can, reduce the barriers to increasing supply, I think we really ought to frame the conversation around the societal benefits of homeownership. And, as if housing supply is, if it's like the fact that it's a question that owning a home versus renting long-term, same area, it's like, it's kind of up to personal preference between renting and home ownership. Like that's a major issue because home ownership should always be way better for people living in the same area long-term. And so I think that's really what we ought to be focusing on, especially that when there's, blossoming evidence that there's all these pro-social effects like civic engagement, entrepreneurship, and handling growing tensions between men and women.
Do I give a final rebuttal or?
Yeah, absolutely. We are going to be putting out a poll of who won this debate as well between the Ivory Fool and Destiny. That is going to be spammed in the chats.
Okay. Wait, for future people, I feel like they should probably have the final say since I get to stay here the whole time, right?
That's fine.
Okay, listen. I didn't know you were coming with the hardcore, the data points, okay? On a serious level, I would obviously we went back and forth on the entrepreneur point. I would argue against that. On to the pro-social point, I would argue that any type of pro-social behavior that is encouraged by, or civic engagement that is encouraged by home ownership, I would say is like soundly defeated by even like a simple glimpse of home ownership around the world. My understanding is Americans have some of the lowest civic engagement in the world, and I think we have some of the highest home ownership rates in the world. You don't see Americans being far more civically engaged than people in Germany or France or Poland or the United Kingdom, despite the fact that the majority of these people live in apartments versus Americans who all live in homes. I don't think that when it comes to like incels and stuff, I don't think that the only way to defeat this is with home ownership. Again, in every comparable European country, when we compare ourselves to them, when we want things like their public transport or we want things like their healthcare systems, they don't seem to have the housing component as like a necessary part of their existence. So I just don't feel a very strong pull towards the idea that that having a home like alleviates these issues. It might in America, but I would argue if it does, it's just because that's like a cultural norm, and it's a cultural norm we need to change.
So go ahead and get the last word, Ivory.
Yeah, I think it's really important to talk about. I didn't expect to have a last word, so I wasn't really thinking of that one. But I just wanted to say I appreciate having the conversation and starting it. And if you ever want to talk in the future, I'm down.
Okay.
Thank you, Ivory Fool. I will drag you out of here. Neath, you're going to be coming up next. Thanks again, Ivory.
Fuck that guy. Don't ever let that guy back on any of these ever again.
Okay, so we are going to be... Are you ready for the next one?
I'm fucking ready.
Sweats
Get me in,
dude.
okay? Get me the fuck in. Get me in. I'm not. I'm ready. I'm locked the fuck in. I'm locked in. I'm locked in now. Go. It's not going to be nice, though. It's not going to be easy. Oh, wow. What's up, Solid Snake? Nice eye patch.
Oh, thanks. Here, I don't have an eye patch in real life, but it's to drawing my pen.
Oh, we got the Carney book. We got the Ezra Klein book. What is up, my neoliberal?
I am fully neoliberal pilled.
And you're going to come and argue houses? How can you even do this? Holy shit. It's like you're coming to argue Christianity with an Ayn Rand book in the background. Let's go. What do you got?
Let him get his opening statement.
Yeah, go ahead, open.
Jesus, come on.
I think my opening statement is just or obviously like there's an investment aspect to housing, but I don't think that's like the most important one to discuss. I think the idea of owning a house is a democratic idea, and maybe the idea of renting is an idea of like a kind of like a dictatorship, like a despot kind of thing. You're at the whims of your landlord. You can either have a good landlord or a bad landlord, and that's how you will get your enjoyment out of renting it. And then with the democratic aspect of owning a house, you're free to fail or succeed, and so you can build wealth, or not build wealth. Sorry, I don't want to make that argument. But you can build up a future that you want, and you are in control of that future by owning a house rather than renting. That's my introduction argument.
My counter retort is nothing is more fascist than owning your own home. In an apartment scenario, what happens? You wake up in the morning, you find out that rents are down in comparable apartment complexes. There's pressure on your landlord to decrease rents. Or maybe in 2 months when your lease is up, maybe you dip, maybe you bounce, maybe you get the fuck out of there. What could be more freeing than the ability to change your abode every 12 to 16 months, depending on your lease arrangement? Versus, let's say that you are one of the unfortunate millennial or Zoomers that had to buy a home in this high interest rate environment, and now you're locked in on a 30-year, 7%, 7-inch dildo pumping in and out of you for 30 years. What is more fascist than the bank that owns that loan never renegotiating with you? You could refinance, I guess, if the interest rates go down. But I feel like, ironically, when it comes to renting, I feel like you have a little bit more freedom. There's a little bit more, if you want to take this kind of democracy aspect, I think there's more competition. Landlords are, to some extent, motivated to keep prices somewhat low or to be somewhat competitive on amenities or services. Whereas, yeah, for the home, as soon as you lock in, you're locked in for 30 years. The bank doesn't give a fuck. You just have to make your payments and then you're done.
I 100% agree on the mobility aspect, but I think like once you have a family, I think that's when you kind of want to settle down and maybe stay in one city rather than moving around. I guess it depends on your job at the end of the day.
You can move around in the city. You can find a different apartment down the street.
Well, no, that's true too, but I guess like it's a big hassle to move. I actually just moved into my new apartment here, and I wouldn't really want to have to move every single year and like get all the couches and all the furniture moved around all the time. It just seems like a big hassle.
It would be, and you wouldn't want to have to move, but having the option to move, that's what freedom is about.
Well, no, I
that's
totally agree. Like the option
about,
to move is good too, but like I don't know. Like I've been seeing, or like the stereotype of like a dad, he's like mowing his lawn like Saturday morning or whatever, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I think like doing like those DIY repairs on your house, like it just speaks to a certain character of people, and like they always want to be in control of like their own house and their own or destiny, has to say, or whatever, right? But
yeah, but
I
imagine if instead of mowing this horrible fucking plant that you grow in the front of your house to show all the other neighbors how trim you can keep your fucking plant, imagine inside you take up woodworking or guitar playing or painting Warhammer 40K figurines, right? At the end of a year, what does your neighbor have to show for this? The homeowner, the mortgageoid, right? He's like, look at how thin my grass is. Meanwhile, you have a full collection of Warhammer 40K painted figurines on homemade custom wood tables, okay, that you can serenade with your guitar skills that you've picked up in your free time because you don't have to waste all your time cleaning your gut. Do you know how many men, do you know the percentage of homeowners that get injuries from cleaning their gutters every year?
It's got to be
35%. You ever see that episode of House with the one guy who falls off the roof and Cuddy gets real mad and I'm just saying.
No, I mean, I totally agree with that. I'm just saying it speaks to a certain like group of people who want to own their own house, and I don't think like we should be discouraging them from like exploring that opportunity. And I think like you obviously have a nuanced opinion. Like it's good to like own or rent just depending on like your situation.
I guess the thing that I don't like being serious, the thing that I don't like is that it feels like culturally there's so much baked into home ownership that makes it seem like an inevitability that you have to own a home to get these things. Like even the thing that you said, like having an investment in a community, well, you have to own a home to do that. That has to be an American idea because we're the only country that has that idea, right? I don't think I've ever been to a European country where the people are like, oh yeah, like I'm here in an apartment, so I don't give a fuck about our politics. Like that's just such a mind-blowing thing to me. And I'm actually curious, I don't have these numbers on hand, but I'm curious who, now that would actually, there's a counter argument. I was say, who is more civically engaged? People that live like in rural areas, like in homes, or people that live in city areas and apartments? But I bet the actual answer to that is probably people who live in city areas and have houses is probably the answer. But
I don't really subscribe to the belief that like you have to own a home to be civically engaged. Like I did a lot of door knocking. I'm Canadian actually, so I don't think it's
I figured that out. Don't
or
worry.
I might be a little different with the markets. But or like I guess like your civic engagement is all just based on like how much invested you feel in the community and whether or not like you rent or like own a house. Like it's all just about how much you care or how much time you have to do all these things or whatever, right? And I think it's hard to change the idea of like owning a house because I actually was trying to do research before this into the idea of like home ownership, and I read this dissertation saying that like the American dream was never originally to own a house, and it was basically like all these European immigrants who migrated from Europe post Reconstruction who wanted to own a house as they saw it as a way to become middle class rather than low wage laborers or whatever, right? And it didn't end up like helping them become middle class, but it satisfied their like desire to have control over like that jump into becoming middle class in a sense. Like middle class people it was like 50-50 renting and
Sure.
owning. So
and I can understand that back in when we say Reconstruction, we do mean like post Civil War. Is that what we're talking about?
Like 1870s to like 1920, I think was the observation.
I wonder back then how much access.
We're going to go ahead and send a poll out, okay, for our Mr. Mooten in better light from Canada here. It's going out.
Mr. Mood, yeah.
What do you mean, damn?
No, I just didn't think I looked that much like Mr. Mooten. But
okay, well, you said damn like negatively there. You should be like Mr. Mooten. Damn.
I get told I look like people all the time.
Damn.
So it's funny. It's funny that people always say that, but it's all good.
Now you're making it sound like a concession. No, it's all good. It's okay.
No. I mean, you should
be
come
excited.
On more often, then I'll
okay,
be,
you should
if
be
he was
excited.
on the stream more often, then I'd be more excited.
Oh, true. Okay.
Yeah, just joking. All right. But yeah, no, I don't think like you have like a huge like, or like I don't think like there's good faith arguments to say like owning is like 100% better than renting in a sense. It's just kind of like what your preferences or like what you have like a need for in life. And I just think like there's a huge majority of people who think that owning is like the most important thing to them. So we have
but
to
I feel
help
like,
accommodate that.
Can I ask how old you are?
22.
Here's something that's very annoying to me. I don't know if this was like this for you. And maybe it was more for me also because I went to a prep school, but I don't think so. I think this is for everybody in my generation. So I'm 36. And one thing that I hear, especially conservatards, cry about is this idea that when we went to high school, they told us, go to college. Everyone has to go to college. One size fits all. We all go to college. And now, all these centrists and all these whatever losers are like fighting on this idea. Like, no, it doesn't. You don't have to go to college. There's all these other things you can do. You don't have, you shouldn't do a one size fits all. But when it comes to home ownership in the new world in North America, it feels like that is the thing. Like if you don't own a home, you're like people look down on you, like culturally. I don't know if Europeans understand that feeling as much. I'm sure that in Europe, if you in European countries, if you have a home, that's probably more prestigious, sure. But I don't think anybody like living in Paris or London or Stockholm or Copenhagen, if you're like, oh yeah, like I have a condo, or oh yeah, like I'm an apartment, I don't think people are like, ooh, that guy's kind of a loser. In the United States, people kind of have a tinge of that feeling. If you're like, oh, like I'm 36, like I have an apartment, it's like, ooh, you rent an apartment? What are you, a fucking loser? What's wrong with you? Like you basically live with your parents. And I think that culture needs to change. There can be times when owning a home is nice and it's okay, but the fact that like home ownership needs to be some sort of inevitability if you want to have a family or something, I think that's super toxic and cancerous, and I don't think that it needs to be the case. I think that's a uniquely American, cringe, weird thing.
Oh yeah, like I 100% agree. Like I don't think the debate should be whether or not like you rent or your own. I think the debate should be, or like how you talk to people about this. It should be like it's okay to have an apartment. You can own your apartment. Like that's totally fine. You can have a condo apartment, but like
true.
It shouldn't be like a single family house in a suburb. It should be like multi-family, dense like housing in that sort of sense, right? And that's obviously a big issue in Canada, is that like we have no housing at all. And so that's like maybe one of the ways of like how you get around that is like you just start densing people like more together, whether that's apartments or with
True.
different
Wait,
design houses from
I just got the sickest idea ever. What is this debate over? Is it over houses versus apartments, or is it over owning versus renting?
It's renting versus owning.
Okay, I should just buy a condo. That's like the best of
You
all the
should.
worlds.
You
Holy
just become a
shit.
landlord.
Well,
like
that's too. I don't care about that. That's too much work. Are you? Oh, you're a strong liberal. You're happy with how the elections turned out?
Yeah, I campaigned for my local Liberal candidate. Unfortunately, didn't win. I live in like Saskatchewan, so
Saskatchewan, is that a province or is that a weird city in like
Yes.
Alberta?
it's a province in like the middle of Canada, right beside Alberta.
Okay. Damn, you're way the fuck
It's
out
kind of
there.
like Nebraska if you think about it.
Yeah, I mean Alberta's kind of like Nebraska, or I guess Alberta's more like Texas, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. What else? What's next? What else you
Next,
got
I
for
don't
me?
know. I also got for you. I don't know. I think you should actually move to Canada and not the U.S.
Why? Why the fuck would I move to Canada?
Canada's just like a better country, or like I think the future is bright for
Okay,
Canada. Like I know
okay. We're gonna get back onto the debate
Okay,
topic. Okay,
no.
Canada sucks. Okay, let's
Canada
be honest
sucks.
with ourselves here.
Wow. He just means Canada sucks because of the way that you guys treat your natives is unacceptable.
That's true. That's true.
I think you guys treat them like way worse than we do, but
Well, but at least
you guys
we're
don't even like acknowledge they exist, do they?
true. Yeah, you guys at least do your land acknowledgements. I'm sure that makes them feel way better.
Yeah. Well, yeah. I guess we should probably keep it to like housing, renting, and owning or whatever, right? But like, do you like disagree with like the fact that we need to like have more apartments or like have more dense housing in any of that sense?
Dense housing, I'm okay with, but housing and density in the United States seems to always go contradictory to each other. Like when people want houses in the United States, it's
Yeah.
almost always single-family homes.
Well, right. It's because like there's like an aspect of like privacy to that too. Like obviously, like depending on your apartment, you can either hear your neighbors walking around or like you can't. Like I can't hear people in my apartment, so that's good. But like, it's just always so. Like there's obviously should be competition for like apartments that like have the best possible thing, but not everybody can have that and not everybody can afford that, right? And I think they would rather have a shitty house than a shitty apartment. I think lots of people would rather have that.
Rather have a shitty house than a shitty apartment. That's probably true-ish. I just feel like there's so many downstream negative effects from having like people in shitty houses where
That's true too.
yeah. The
But I don't
yeah.
like that's where like obviously government comes in to help, like maybe give like funding or like or maybe poor people or like poor people. I should say like less fortunate people who like buy a shitty home. Like maybe they should have like some sort of like condo association. So like they're not the ones who has to take care of like the lawn or like any like repairs or whatever. Right? Like they still own their house, but like somebody else comes and manages like all these like extra. I guess it's like renting with extra steps in that sense, right? But I think the ownership is just like what's so core to what people want.
Yeah, I guess. Yeah. I also don't like the ownership aspect when you say quote what people want to, because it ends up creating this weird like generational expectation. It's probably true in Canada as well, because I think Canada and the US are siblings when it comes to culture. Like in America, people think that they own the right to have their entire lineage live in their house for the rest of existence. Like unironically, like if I grew up in this house, my kids should have this house, their kids, their kids, their kids, their kids. And I think it ends up being a big stifling thing to any kind of future development. I'm actually curious in Canada. I bet you do have it in Canada. I'm curious in Europe. Is gentrification a concept in Europe? Is it in Canada?
Oh yeah, like there's like neighborhoods in like in my city that are being like gentrified. Like they used to be pretty rundown neighborhoods, and they're trying to be more investment into those areas, and they're actually like very cool aspects of the city. Like it's way better, or like even downtown is being like gentrified to like just accommodate more people instead of people being out in like the.
Because in the
Suburban
United
areas.
States, like I don't know if it must be the same in Canada. I don't know in Europe. In the United States, gentrification is literally like the worst word ever. Like it's like saying the N word but with housing projects. Like gentrification is the worst thing ever. And it's strange to me because like what does it mean when you gentrify an area? It usually means that you are like improving the area like a billion different ways. But people don't like it because sometimes people that live there might be displaced. And it's like, well, are all of our decisions around housing and city planning and all that, are they built around the idea that whoever happens to be in an area, their entire lineage is going to be there for the rest of eternity? Like that just seems like a very restrictive and bad way to do, I guess, city planning.
I actually don't know like too many people who like have that like intergenerational household thing where like it's passed on to the next. It always seems like the kids move out, they go to a different city, or especially in Saskatchewan, like lots of the kids will move out to other provinces for job opportunities and that stuff, right? And their parents stay in that house until like they sell it for like retirement or whatever. So I don't really know that like the house passes down from generation to generation. It's usually like once the house is sold, that money will be passed down to the kids like through like their estate or whatever, right?
Destiny, if you want to go ahead and give a little closing, and then we'll give him the last word. Unfortunately, there was too much agreement that what happened, and Neath,
I mean, the
you
guy's
have
got a
been-
Klein and Carney book behind him. I mean, what are we gonna disagree
yeah.
on? You know?
I mean,
You were desperate for people, so I just thought I'd like volunteer and give help. So
no, thank you so much, Neath. Any last words that you have?
or was Destiny supposed to go first, or was I supposed to?
I'll go first.
Destiny.
You know, I realized in the middle of this conversation, I should buy a condo.
You should.
I don't know why I haven't. That would be a really good idea. But yeah, and then yeah, go ahead.
Oh, if that's all you have to say, then.
What was the
Alright.
central point of our disagreement? Fuck, what did you bring up?
I don't think we really disagreed on anything, but I think it was just like the investment in the community of like staying here, owning a house, and like it's about staying in the city and being loyal to the city rather than like having the option to move out. I think that's kind of where our disagreement was.
Oh, okay.
We'll go ahead and link the poll to see who won this one.
Yo, fuck this chat. These guys are all just mortgageoids. They're all just homeowners.
True.
All right. Well, Destiny, you're just getting destroyed today, okay? This segment's never going to happen again because Destiny is just going to actually retire afterwards. So, Neath, you are the winner of this debate.
Thanks.
Canada did not win, though.
Canada did
It's
win.
always gonna win in the end.
You guys got this. Good
But
luck.
yes, thank you for coming on, Neath.
Yeah, no problem. I think you guys should do like more of this. Maybe pick better topics and like, or not better topics, but like ones that like encourage.
Well, I wanted to do a
more
really serious
nuanced
one, and then Hobbit was like, "You should just write a meme article to fuck with everybody." And
I
that'd be great.
I love the
definitely,
article, by the way.
I did not say that. We are going to have a very serious topic for the next one, because, yeah. But
Fuck
thank
you.
you so much for
Fuck
your time,
you.
Neath.
Yeah, no problem. Thanks for the chat. Appreciate it.
Thanks, guy.
All right. We ready for the next one, or do you need
I'm ready,
to take
dude.
a pee break
Listen, I
or
woke up
something?
late
Okay.
today. My Vyvanse has kicked in though, so now I'm locked in. I'm ready to go.
Oh my God,
okay?
we're locked in.
We're locked
okay,
in.
Reason Riffs is going to be coming up next.
Oh, hey.
Right, Reason Riffs.
Okay, cool. I can see his.
Oh God.
Go ahead and get your camera up real quick.
Okay, cool. Let's.
Where are you from? What city?
Me, I'm from originally from the UK, near to London, but I live in Germany,
Near to London, and you live in Germany. Okay.
and I spent a lot of time cycling around Europe, and
Like
yeah,
actually, like
I've-
bicycling?
yeah, I did.
Oh, I see
about,
the bicycle in the
50
background.
Oh, yeah, that's the indoor trainer, and there's a guitar, and I also have one of my Warhammer models here. Just to say hi.
Holy shit. Okay. Where in
Yeah,
Germany do
so
you live? Do
Meet
you say
your-
what city?
meet your new opponent.
I live near Leipzig. I'm a physicist.
Oh, okay. I was in
I'm doing
Leipzig a
PhD.
few years ago for a dream hack, I think, or for something. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. Oh, well, I think I know. Yeah, it was in Leipzig Messe. Yeah.
Yeah.
The local fair.
You're a physicist. What do you do as a physicist?
I'm working with statistical models, so it's systems that are out of equilibrium. So if you imagine systems that are driven rather than just being in a relaxed state, then those systems I'm looking at, and you get really interesting pattern formation. So like bird flocks, for example. So when you next see a flock of birds moving around, you can think of some of the physics I work on. But it's applicable to a lot of things.
Okay.
And I also have a degree in philosophy.
Jesus.
So that was another life. So.
Okay.
Okay.
All right.
Get ready, Destiny. Go ahead with your opening statement, Reason Riffs.
Wait, my one
Okay.
quick question.
Wait.
Yeah, sure.
Wait, have I ever given a take on any physics-related thing that's made you cringe that you think I'm wrong about?
Yes. What was it? Okay. No, it was on nuclear winter. I mentioned.
Oh,
this in the
I
comments
know you're the
before.
guy in chat. You said this yesterday. Fuck you. I almost called you out in chat.
Yeah.
You said, I'm a physicist in training or something, or I do this, and you gave a take on nuclear winter that was cringe. Fuck you.
Yeah.
What was I wrong about?
Well, you didn't understand why it wouldn't lead to further climate change, but that's an oversimplification of where the clouds settle and where the light's being reflected from. So when it's reflected from the surface, it then has a longer distance to travel, which means it gets trapped in the atmosphere. Whereas with nuclear winter, it gets reflected far higher up and therefore is lost into space. That's why nuclear winter is a real bugger. And the studies show that a full-out war between India and Pakistan could be a bit dangerous for us all. But
Okay.
yeah.
Wait, I'm sorry. Final question. Hobbit is trying to run our. Wait. The light is. Oh, wait. Can you explain to me the difference real quick? Why is it in Venus Why is it not the case there? Why does Venus have an atmosphere that seems to trap heat more than a nuclear winter here would reflect it more? Why?
Because the light seems to get to the ground. So it depends on the particle size. So from what I understand, the particles that would end up in the stratosphere from nuclear winter would be much larger. So there's a high likelihood of the light being reflected earlier on. Whereas when the particles are smaller, so like small molecules and things like oxygen, then they're much smaller and less likely to be trapped by them. So it reaches the ground. When it reaches the ground, it heats the ground up, and then you get infrared that's emitted. Infrared is much more easily kept inside the atmosphere. We're kind of buggered when that happens. So Venus is...
infrared is basically just like heat being emitted from a thing, and if the ground heats up and the heat's being emitted, then that's way worse than all the energy being sent back into outer space from like the clouds or whatever. So
well, infrared is also light, but like non-visible light, effectively. And so it's a different wavelength. It's a larger wavelength, so it gets trapped more easily.
Okay.
Yeah, so it's just the same stuff, so to say, yeah.
Okay. All right, go. Sorry. All right.
Yeah. Okay.
I just want you to feel intellectually spirit for a micro moment before you get obliviated on your housing takes.
No, I really, it's a joy for me to share my understanding. But on housing, I actually have two disagreements with you, but I'm going to put one to the side because your article was about the individual's perspective and the individual's context. So there's the broader discussion around the housing market, how much should be left in the market, how much state involvement, if any, should be involved. We're going to leave that to one side. Hopefully one day I'll get to debate you again on this.
Okay.
You came from a perspective of the individual, and from the individual I can delineate like two key things. One is the financial and one is the psychological aspects of renting, right?
Mm-hmm.
And you seem to be in this position where you're suggesting, I mean, from your article, it's generally like that, renting good, buying bad. But from discussions so far, you seem to be compromising your position somewhat. Is that fair?
Well, we write articles to be a bit more, hyperbolic to get the interest going. But
yeah, I assume that might be the case. But nevertheless, the question is then, who is renting for, who's buying for, and what kind of percentages we're talking here? Can we even go as far as to say that for the majority of people, let's say in the US, that buying is preferable?
That buying is preferable. Well, I mean, you're begging the question. Yeah, it's preferable, but why is it preferable, right? I think those are the things that you
Yeah, I'm just laying the groundwork for where we might disagree.
Sure. In the United States, most people look very highly upon owning a home, even a bad home, versus renting an apartment or something. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's because also it's more plausible than, say, in Germany. I mean, I'm from the UK, and UK, the percentage is a little different. It's more towards what the US is like. That's because of the destruction during World War II. The lack of supply after World War II led to a culture of renting. And that because it was a lot of state building of houses, a lot of it was rented out, given out as social housing, and this created a culture in which it became acceptable to rent. So that's kind of the historical ground for why in Germany it's a little different, and many European countries, but not so much in the UK. In the UK, there's a similar culture to the US of, my house is my castle. That's the saying in the UK. And there is this culture that's similar to the US. So I think it reflects upon it being possible, and then it becomes a status symbol to some extent. So I agree that there's a bias towards it, as if it's black and white, always good, never good to rent. That said, I mean, some of the aspects on the financial side of things, I've heard you say this before in previous streams, that it's just preferable to put it into an ETF rather than putting it into a mortgage.
Or literally any other asset class, yeah.
Okay, and you think this is a pretty clear-cut argument for renting?
If your argument is just about like wealth building, then I attack the wealth building argument by saying that there are far better ways to build wealth. Yeah.
Okay, and so you're talking on that.
So one of the main things that I attack when it comes to the financial underpinnings of owning a home is people are incapable of viewing home ownership as a consumption. People don't view homes as consumable goods when you're consuming it, and there's even like depreciation tied to that because it requires like maintenance and upkeep. So because people have this view that a house is just an asset that appreciates in value, it's not a consumption good. When they view renting an apartment, they always use that phrase, you're setting a pile of money on fire. And it's like, well, no, you're not. You're spending money to have a home, or to have an apartment in this case, right? So the people who talk about like owning a home as like building wealth or whatever, I'd say, well, no, this is a consumable thing that you have, just like it could be an apartment, and it's conceivable that you could save money renting an apartment than you would owning a home, and then you could just invest the difference, and that would give you more worth, more value, or more net worth or whatever later on. Yeah.
Okay, and on average, you're saying that it would be you get more net worth from renting and then from saving money from renting, because
Almost
renting
certainly,
is expensive.
except for in exceptional circumstances. I call them exceptional, but maybe they wouldn't. So, for instance, if you're not going to be in a place for at least 5 years, you're almost always better off renting. But like if you're in a place where like I'm going to go buy a house, I'm fucking here for like the next decade. My kids are going to be born here. We're going to school or whatever. Then in these cases, I think that the wealth argument can start to shift in favor of the homeowner. Yeah.
That's interesting. I mean, I was looking at US statistics. I've tried to give you home advantage here and look at US statistics, not focus on the world because it's just more complex. And people move on average like 11 times in their lifetime, but the vast majority is before the age of 45. So you're saying that after the age of 45, it's not comparable to buy.
Can you hear this? I'm so sorry.
Yeah, I can. It sounds like
literally
it's a roller coaster, right?
This is what your economy's going to sound like in 10 years, okay, after Russia's done with Ukraine. So
I think 5 years actually at this rate. But yeah.
Okay, sorry. Repeat. Go ahead. Say that again.
Yeah, basically, the moving argument really is for under 45s. And after 45, if you have enough money or enough income, then you're able to get a mortgage. And it's perhaps preferable then because people aren't moving so much, very rarely after 45.
Yeah, perhaps it comes down to lifestyle decisions or like what the reason for that is. Yeah, it's hard to know how much is baked in as like a cultural expectation versus like what is a thing like that people naturally gravitate towards. Like, I don't know, for instance, in a society where renting was more acceptable, maybe older people would be a tad more mobile. But in the United States, they just settle down in some place and sit there forever.
I'm going to make some points actually about my own context. It's anecdotal, so let it be. But this week had a 20% increase on my rent given to me. The reason it wasn't higher, by the way, is because of rent controls in Germany, which I know you're not that keen on, but they were a saving grace. In my context, I can't really see any of the disadvantages in terms of the current German housing market.
Well, of course you can't. You're a beneficiary of rent control.
Well, exactly. But I mean, I don't.
The federal government would give me $1 million. I wouldn't see any downsides to that either. Yeah, but okay, go ahead.
Yeah, but you could say that it would reduce the supply of housing because it become less advantageous. But I mean, in Germany, there's a supply shortage, but it's no different from anywhere else in the world at the moment.
I feel like Germany actually is recently, there have been studies coming out, I think focused on, Berlin, that show that like rent control is kind of fucked with the stock of housing and everything, but
Berlin is a screwed up basket case. I mean, there's a lot of complexity to it. It's grown far too quickly. Leipzig is undergoing this to some extent. I don't live in Leipzig. I live in a satellite city to it. But
okay. But sorry, go ahead. So you're the beneficiary of rent control. Yeah, go ahead.
I'm a beneficiary of rent control, which I'm very grateful for. And I think actually in the German context, it's very modest. 20% is still a lot in 1 year.
That's actually insanely high. When we talk about rent control, like in the United States, I feel like you're talking like can somebody tell me, like, I feel like I know somebody like in Canada and Toronto, people that their rent control is like 2 to 3% per year, unironically. And I think in California, I think it's similar. Like 20% that's a really big like rent control thing. But okay, Jesus. As in like your rent can grow up quite a bit, but yeah, okay.
I mean, exactly. The rent control can be quite modest, right? And then perhaps in that case, you can argue for it.
Okay, yeah. Like I would argue, like 20% almost seems like protection against like supply shocks or something. Like if your rent was 2,000 euros, a month, and then your landlord wants to raise it higher than 2,400 could be your next rent. Like if you want to go higher than that, geez, that just seems crazy. But okay, yeah. So, sorry, keep it on code.
Yeah, I mean, this is a bit of a tangent. This wasn't really around my main points, but it was the fact that renting is incredibly volatile, actually. And the volatility tends not to be as much during recessions. But what's interesting, if you look at recessions, is the number of evictions in the US per capita was higher than the number of people that experienced foreclosure, even in the 2008 crisis, which, was all about the housing bubble. So the notion that eviction or that renting is less volatile than buying, I think that's a misnomer. I would go as far as to say that for the vast majority of people, unless you've got a really substantial income, which in either case then reduces that volatility for you, you can just move or buy elsewhere, or have enough savings to cover a mortgage if you lose your job. That on average, renting is far more of a volatile, and for the psychological side of things, which is a little bit difficult to get a metric for.
I think I think there's two ways that I would look at the volatility related to that. So one, I'll make the boring level one rejection, is that it wouldn't surprise me that renters were more likely to be evicted than homeowners foreclosed on, just because financially you're probably more in a better spot to be a homeowner than you are if you're renting, just in the United States, how the culture goes. Now, it's possible that whatever you're citing, maybe they controlled for that, or this was just like a broad look at the statistics. But also, when I talk about volatility as well, the outcomes in terms of how volatile personally it is to your life, I don't know if that's like a real expression, is different as well. So for instance, let's say that I say that Did you know that twice as many people are injured playing football as they are playing basketball, right? Controlling for all the other stats. And let's say that when I look at a basketball, let's say that the average injury is a sprained ankle, but then let's say that when I look at football, the average injury is a sprained ankle, and twice as many people are injured in football as basketball. But in basketball, the average injury is your leg gets cut off. Even if twice as many people are injured when it comes to basketball, that's not necessarily a bad thing. So, equating this to the housing market, getting evicted from an apartment sucks, but and maybe I'm over relying on like personal experience. Getting foreclosed on a house can be like financially ruinous for like the next decade of your life. I don't know. I wish I had these stats offhand, but like I don't know how many of these people have to file bankruptcy after that. You could be on the hook for like a ton of money. There's just like a whole bunch of like obligations that you have relating to a home where if you can't pay it, you're in a really fucked state. Versus an apartment, generally the worst thing you do is just kick you out, and it's like, oh fuck it,
Well, yeah, I mean, you can often downsize. I would assume after losing a home of a certain size, and if you can find a way of doing that with the family size that you have. So I think it's a bit ambiguous as to really the consequence. I mean, I can see your analogy. It's a good one. It's the probability versus risk.
One big thing that I think a lot of people that don't own homes know, and maybe it's different in Europe. So in the United States, every time you buy and sell a home, there's a little speed bump that you have to go over that could be significant depending on your financing situation or your money situation, and it's closing costs on a loan. So anytime you buy or sell a home, you have to pay. There are closing costs that I think are around 5.5%. I think they go to the mortgage place or whatever. So if I buy a home for like $1 million, there's like an extra $30,000 to $50,000 that I just have to pay just for like closing the loan. So anytime you buy and sell a home, this is why I say like if you're going to be in a place for at least 5 years, it starts to become more worthwhile. But buying and selling homes over and over again can be a very costly endeavor.
Yeah, well, they're saying that mortgages are tax deductible in the US, right? Up to like $500,000 for a couple.
It's not relevant for most people, but the interest that you pay month to month can be tax deductible such that it's removed from your gross income, your taxable gross income. But which is
substantial at the beginning when you're paying off the initial costs, and the interest is the total interest will be higher. So that's really good for first-time buyers.
Not really, but it gets into complicated tax reasons. But like for instance, let's say that I have a mortgage for $1 million, and let's say that on the first month, not $1 million. Let's say we have a $500,000 mortgage. Let's say that I pay $4,000 a month. Let's say that by the end of the year, let's say that I've paid. We'll say $3,000 a month. Let's say I've paid like $30,000 in interest. That just means that I can knock off, if I'm overcoming my standard deduction, because you also have to itemize your taxes as well to take advantage of the interest deduction on us. It's like by the time you get through everything, it does save some money if your home is large enough and you're paying enough. But because the standard deduction in the US is so high, this is like getting into tax shit. It's the amount of money that people save on home interest deduction is just not very meaningful to poor people, I guess. Yeah. Sorry.
Okay, but I mean, the other side of it, as I think you would bring up the S&P, like let's say 7-10% average a year increase, and ETFs can perform in this way. And then you'd say, well, the average increase in house price from 85 to, which years did I take? From 85 to 2025 was like 4.5%. So your argument would be that the percent increase is lower here.
Well, not only that, but there's also, to get that 4 or 5% increase, it's even less because because the house is a depreciating asset. You have to pay maintenance on it, right? If you take that exact same house and you age it 40 years, if you haven't replaced the roof, if you haven't replaced the HVAC or the air conditioning, or if you haven't updated the interior, like it's way less, right?
There was a study in 2024 that showed that 90% of repairs actually increase the value of the house. So it's not all clear cut. It's often an upgrade, and you can use it as an upgrade. So it's again about comparing these two things is a little bit tricky. And the other side of it is
I would be curious to see that thing real quick, because it increases the value of the home. Any repair for sure will increase the value of the home. But the question is does it increase the value of the home more than the cost of the repair, whatever? And
in this study, it was 90% of cases actually increase the value of the home. But I haven't looked at the detail of the study. It was just one counter argument that I thought I'd bring forward this evening.
Okay. I'd be curious to see that, because when I was in the market for homes, I had always heard that it was a big myth, that if you put in like a new $40,000 kitchen, you can sell the home for like $20,000 or $30,000 more, but you're never recouping. The only people that can actually make money on additions like that are people that specialize in fixing up homes. But if you're paying like a contract, you're paying somebody else to do an add-on or an addition to your home, it'll increase the value of the home, but it's always going to cost you more than what the increased value of the home would be. But
yeah, I don't think that's what the study was pointing at. It was actually pointing at that otherwise, like if it increases by $1, then you can say, well, it's one of these cases. And then why would the other 10% not increase the value of the home by even $1? Okay. So I think it was insinuating that compared to the cost, it was actually increasing the value of the home. Okay. And the other thing is the big thing about mortgage, which is why when you actually look at the percentages, it is favorable from a financial perspective, is that mortgage is massive leverage. So, I mean, a conservative leverage in conservative case in the US would be, say, a 9-to-1 leverage. You put a 10% down payment, and then if you can get this kind of leverage on a fairly low risk asset, like a stock that you know is going to go up, you can make some insane money, and then you're looking at like 12% interest. It's equivalent to 12% interest with the money that you're putting in, compared to the 4.5% increase in the value of the home. And of course, it's the home and the land, right? So the depreciation is on the home itself, not on the land. So it's also a question of, if you own valuable land, I mean, you could have a wreck on some valuable land, but that's going to be a good asset. So again, there's the ambiguity there. But
that's actually not ambiguous. That's actually a real point. But most mortgageoids are too stupid to understand leveraging, so it never comes up. So fuck them. But no, that is true. One of the few ways that you can argue that home ownership is advantage to stocks is that if I put $1 million in the stock market, my $1 million can appreciate, but that's it. If I put $1 million into a home, I'm actually leveraging that 5-to-1, 10-to-1, 20-to-1 if you have an FHA loan, maybe 5%, and now you're actually appreciating the value based on leveraging, like 20-to-1 or 10-to-1 or 5-to-1, yeah. And that can be true, although I would argue, we're going a little bit into the weeds on this, but I would argue that actually ends up creating harmful downstream distortionary effects on markets, because what happens in these cases is there is a tax that most economists view highly favorably, and that tax is a property tax. And one of the scary things about people that are leveraging their income to buy a home, meaning they found a way to have an asset that is appreciating in value substantially because they only have to invest a little bit into it, is that those people are then not able to handle the maintenance fees on that asset if those maintenance fees are related to tax increases. So then you end up in these really weird distortionary markets, like in California, where they're like, well, if you're going to have a tax increase on a thing, the tax can only go up like 2% per year, because now you have these people that are oddly tax priced out of the homes that they live in. So you have these people with these homes worth millions of dollars that aren't making any money, they don't have any cash flow, and they're saying, I can't afford the property taxes, we need to get rid of them. You could argue that's the fault of the homeowner, that you could just not do that, but yeah.
Yeah, but I mean, this would feed back into the issues for renters, right? Because, I mean, of course, a rented home is also owned by somebody else who experiences this themselves. And so then they push that. That's one of the reasons why my rent's gone up, is because there will be increased costs for the homeowner. So in the end, this gets pushed onto renters anyway. Plus, there's the additional volatility if the area is just in demand, and so they can put the prices up beyond the costs.
Sure, but I'm okay with those costs. I want to sound harsh here. I'm okay with those costs being pushed onto renters, though. Much the same because I'm okay with those costs being eaten by homeowners as well. If a homeowner wants to leverage their income and buy, or they want to leverage some capital, they want to buy a house, and they want to deal with the property taxes, I'm totally okay with that. Much the same that if a landlord wants to do that, then that's fine as well. I just think the pricing in an area should always reflect the asset value and the taxation. When you have landlords there, it will reflect both those values, because they'll pass it on to renters, which I think kind of the consumption should move along with like the economic opportunities available in the area and all that. Whereas if you have homeowners there, they're going to try to push down that cost of the taxation, which I think creates bad distortionary effects. One thing that I think is okay, but a lot of people really hate to hear this. I don't know if the feeling is different in Europe than America. In America, we hate this, but I think it's okay sometimes. I don't think that everybody should be able to afford to live in every single area. I think it's okay to say, like, this city is too expensive for, people that work this type of labor to live here. Like, probably only the people that can work here should probably be able to live here. But when you try to create a market where everybody can live everywhere, all the distortionary effects just end up destroying, like any coherent economic policy.
Yeah, I think that's an interesting point. I mean, it's an issue of inequality and not accepting any inequality whatsoever. It's a broader issue, right?
Yeah.
And that sometimes there will be some inequality. It can actually be a motivator. But then it's a question of why and who can afford to live somewhere. So London's an interesting case, because a lot of people who actually work in London can't afford to live there. There's a number of cases, thousands of cases of people living in garden sheds and garages, the kind of accommodation that people shouldn't be living in. And 3.4% of houses are actually empty. A lot of homes are owned as a form of equity, which is then distorting the market in itself. So ownership there is, I mean, this goes against the previous debater's point. Like, ownership can actually be very anti-democratic and can drive inequality. That's not a good thing. So yeah, I think the idea of a priori being, being entitled to a home, I think it's ridiculous. We should be entitled to the necessities that keep us healthy, but the size of homes and such like, I think people on average in democracies in general are perhaps too used to a level of luxury, or an expectation. I don't know why it's driven that way. And yeah, there's too much a sense of entitlement, I think, there. And I think that's also true within housing.
Yeah. I guess I wish people could understand that, like, if you want a certain thing, then you can have that thing, but there are going to be trade-offs associated with it. But sometimes it feels like people want all the good without any of the trade-off on the bad, which gets frustrating.
Sounds a bit like Brexit, to be honest.
A little bit, yeah. Also, I don't know. I've never heard a solution from neoliberals or from like housing haters like me. I've never heard a good solution for how do you have a combination of different people living in a city because you need all those people to work those jobs. So like using the most hyperbolic example, you go to San Francisco, you need these like tech jobs. Obviously, that's what these people do. And these people like earn on the low end, like $250,000 a year. But you also need baristas for your coffee shops. You need janitors for your buildings. Like, I don't know how you create a situation where those people can also live there without having to commute into work an hour. I don't know I've never heard a good solution for that. I'm not sure. Yeah.
Sorry to interrupt. Reason Riffs, go ahead and give your closing if that's answering Destiny's question right there.
I'll go back to the main point.
Yeah.
Oh, well, cool. Okay. I wasn't paying too much attention there. But no, I've really enjoyed that. She's really, really good natured. Now, I'm going to go back to the original point that just simply comparing the increase in house prices and with performance of ETFs is a bit of a misnomer. You need to look at the leverage that you can get on mortgages. I think the volatility brought about by evictions. Okay, you may say that you're not going to go bankrupt as a result, but you got to think about where you live in regards to your job. That's kind of reflecting upon what we're talking about at this point in time and the importance of that. Housing it's got a luxurious element to it, but it's ultimately a necessity, and that's contingent on your life as to your work, your family, schooling. So evictions can be incredible upheaval. And I think if you look at the ownership in the US, 2/3 of Americans own a home. And to follow, Destiny's mentality with regards to market-driven, markets knowing best, perhaps it's the fact that the market does know best in the US, and that for 2/3 of Americans is the right thing.
Cringe. Okay, can I ask you one other unrelated question? Do you think that Brett Weinstein or Eric Weinstein, do you think he was as smart as Sean Carroll? I think they're about on the same level.
Oh, wow. That's cringe. That was cringe. I was actually reading his physics at the same time, or trying to. He didn't have much his model doesn't bring much to the fore. Just because string theory is not proven doesn't mean to say that his model is any better. And when you look at it, it doesn't solve problems such as renormalization issues. And it's not really my area of expertise in physics, so I will put it out there. But he himself is just an influencer who's about likes and clicks. He was a hedge fund manager for a long time. I'm not a philosopher because I have a philosophy degree. I'm a physicist now, with still interest in philosophy. Yeah, he was. Your take was spot on with regards to him.
Okay, just curious.
Okay, Reason Riffs, thank you. If you guys want to catch more Reason Riffs opinions and things that if you like his style, he is one of our newest people that are on the Pragmatic Papers. He's got a really interesting backstory. He really did cycle around. He shared a couple of pictures within our news Discord. Super interesting, guys. Thank you for coming out, man.
I've been held at gunpoint twice, in both times in Turkey, actually.
By military people or by non-military people?
One case was by the Turkish military because I was taking pictures near a military institution installation. And the other case was the PKK. And then when they realized I was a tourist, they laughed and invited me to drink tea with them. And then I took their portrait.
Do you ever run it coming from areas? I'm assuming PKK. You're in Southeast Turkey?
East Turkey. Not.
Do you ever run into issues coming back from there to Turkey proper? Did how sus are the military people?
No, it's not like going to Transnistria. I actually got into Transnistria. There's part of Moldova that's effectively Russian.
In the north.
That was more treacherous because the Moldovan security guards at the unofficial border were like, you've just illegally come into our country. And I was like, oh, nice to meet you.
It is very annoying how many of these like autonomous free zones, like Transnistria in Moldova, and then the two, I've always fucked the names up, but the South Ossetia and whatever in Georgia, and then you see the same exact thing happening in Ukraine, and people are like, oh, like Russia would never do this again, or this is a one-time thing. It's literally an exact repeat of Georgia. It's fairly similar, I feel, to the Moldova stuff. It's very fucking annoying.
It's getting worse every time. Putin's taking more and more risks, and the suffering. It's about the personal level as well. I know at least one family that's lost a father in this war. They're Russian speaking, by the way, this stupid talking point that the Russian speakers want to go to Russia. Well, the Irish who speak English don't want to go to England, that's for sure.
Mm-hmm.
it goes down to the individual level and how tragic it is. And yeah, and there's also these issues in Turkey with minorities and the Turkish government, but they're not quite on the level of Putin. But yeah, if you at some point want me to share some stories about my journeys, yeah, we can. Feel free to drop me a line. And yeah.
Okay, cool. Sounds good.
Yeah, thanks for having me on. Yep.
Thank you, Reason Riffs. Okay, gonna drag you out. Okay.
Fuck that guy.
I promised the people that we wouldn't cut them off. I only have 8 people total. Are you good to go through this entire row of people? This will be the 4th person coming up.
Yeah.
I know we started like about 15.
Bring him the fuck on, dude.
All right, that guy is super interesting, by the way.
He's okay.
I might, yeah. All right, Dyslexic Gamer, you're coming on up. Okay, hello. Dyslexic Gamer, you're in the hot seat.
Nice. How's everyone doing today?
What? Did you just speed up your talking? Hello?
Hello? Are you all good?
Oh, yeah. Okay, wait.
Yeah, it was kind of weird.
I think it was lagging and it was catching up, so it sped your talking up. So it sounded like you said, "Hey guys, what's up? How are you doing?" I was like, "Okay, what's up? How's it going?"
Pretty good, pretty good. Do you just want me to jump into the intro?
Yeah, fucking get into it. Go.
By all means, get right into it, dude.
Nice apartment you're living in right now, by the way. Go ahead.
Thank you. Studio. Imagine being a rentoid. Imagine not being able to make your dream because you have your dream gaming room because you have rules against wall mountings. Imagine paying for something that disappears at the end of the month. Instead, let's be homeowners. Let's buy property that you own, and you can do whatever the fuck you want with it. Destiny, I'm sure you remember the Dan kitty litter attic meme.
I do, of course. It's my meme.
Yeah. You can't do that in an apartment because you can't make a kitty palace up there. Dan's crying. He's weeping right now. So we should own capital, not just keep getting subscriptions month after month, never building liquidity, equity, any of that stuff. And if we don't do that, what are our children going to inherit? Are they going to have a Hulu subscription that's $50 now because of inflation? Or if they're lucky, they can be like Donald Trump and inherit a multi-million-dollar real estate business and become the president, I guess. So I think renting steals a lot of future capital growth for the average Americans who don't know how to invest.
Counterpoint, just do whatever the fuck you want in your apartment and let your landlord deal with it when your lease expires.
Sorry, I'm just stopping to think because I'm just an empathetic person. I don't really want to just fuck over people just out of the blue. Like,
You're
that's
not fucking over.
not really how...
So I understand you do have more flexibility or freedom with what you do in your house. I definitely agree with that. But I think it's just it's like a privilege that you pay for. It's not like granted for free. I think that if you like significantly want to alter your indoor living space in ways that requires modifications to structure or things you can do in an apartment, I think that's actually one of the few stronger arguments for living in a house. Just understand that you're paying a premium for gaining access to that right. That's not just like a thing that is like happens to be granted for free, you know?
Yeah, of course, but I think it's something worth the cost, and is B, worth it, especially with the gains you get just from home ownership and settling down in a place for a certain amount of time. If we're talking about like jumping around city to city, house to house, 100% renting is going to be best, especially in that 5 to honestly 10-year range. Right now, the market's really bad for home ownership. But
why? But how many people do you think like seriously have like these massive? It doesn't have to be massive, but how many people have these like big home modifications that you think they want to make that they would seriously benefit from living in a home for?
I would say 33%, 50%.
Okay, I would say that number is probably closer to like 4 to 5%.
So you think like people aren't
for people that want to like make like modifications to their homes like inside?
Yeah.
I feel like that's pretty rare. Like even the people I know that own homes, I don't think many people do like big like what are you talking? What are you thinking of? I guess.
Well, I know it can go from like wall mountings to, let's say I want to put a grill or a hot tub in the back of my house.
Sure. So like wall mountings,
Maybe
I think
like
that
water heater. I know like wall-less tankless heaters are nice to install because then you can take a shower as long as you want.
well, or when in an apartment, you can just take a shower as long as you want because you have a massive water heater for the whole apartment. What?
I can't.
What do you have,
My
individual
apartment.
water heaters per unit or something?
Something like that. Either that or I'm wasting
That is
my
a thing.
neighbor's one. so
I'll
I
butt
feel
in.
bad.
That is a thing.
Damn, fuck that.
Water heaters within apartments. You probably have a boiler room, Destiny. That
Oh
ours
yeah,
will-
we do have a boiler room.
Definitely has
So you should live in a bigger apartment. I feel like for hanging stuff on a wall or for wall mounting stuff, you should be able to do that in an apartment.
Okay, and I guess I could.
Yeah. If you're including that, then I agree that that number would be quite high, like 20 to 50% seems high, but 20, 30, 40% maybe people would want to do that. But yeah, buy some plaster or whatever and just over the hole you make afterwards and don't fucking destroy your,
Yeah.
or not plaster, I'm sorry, spackle, yeah. Fuck all that.
No, I know it's honestly annoying, like not having the legal authority to do stuff and being like, I can frickin' fix the closet behind me. If you can see, it's a little broken.
Sure.
It's just annoying being like, well, I'd rather own that and have it be my responsibility instead of this delegating thing where we're just constantly renting everything. What do you think of the argument that I know that there are better ways to invest your money, probably especially moving around, but that it is a good way just for the average uneducated Americans to grow wealth through homeownership?
Yeah, I think unfortunately, I think there's one of the stronger arguments is like an argument from ignorance that it's like Social Security. Like we should never get rid of Social Security because people just won't invest their money, get left to their own devices. I think you can make a strong argument from ignorance that people can't invest their money, so they might as well just buy a home. But I feel like the Social Security thing I can accept. The home ownership thing, I think that should be a culture that you fight against, because I think having more liquidable investments and not being locked into a home, just because there's not very many that I can see. There's not very many external negative effects created by Social Security, but there are a lot of negative external effects created by homes as primary wealth vehicles for families. So I feel like culturally that should be discouraged, or people should be encouraged to look at other investment things. Yeah.
And can you tell me some of those negative externalities that you're seeing that I'm not seeing?
I'm gonna put the poll up real quick.
As in, like when I'm thinking of like how to plan a city, or when I'm thinking of how to like do taxation, I want to think about like for city planning, I want like optimal ways to plot out a city where everybody is like sorted out as economically efficiently as possible. When I'm thinking of tax policy, same thing. I'm like, how do I collect the most money from people? What I don't want to think of is there's a way to sort the city out way better, but if we sort it out differently, everybody's going to lose their primary wealth vehicle, which has become their home. Like now, all of a sudden, we're locked into really weird policies where we're not optimizing for city planning, we're not optimizing for city design, we're optimizing for the fact that people don't know how to invest their money, and they're just using their homes as primary investment vehicles. And then, yeah, all the negative distortionary effects, maybe people would be better off living somewhere else, or we'd be better arranging a city in a different way, but now we can't because people locked into these primary investment vehicles that are their homes. I think it's bad.
Okay, so kind of like the NIMBYism, you think, becomes too strong then.
Not even necessarily NIMBYism, but like literally just like some people should just move. I think the popular example of this would be people who are 50 years old, late 40s, 50s. Their kids have moved out, but now they own their home. So there's you got a husband and a wife. They're in a home that has like 3 or 4 or 5 bedrooms. And they never want to leave because they own it now. And what do you do with those people? Like you don't really want them to stay there. It's a misappropriation of goods. They're consuming housing that they don't need, and it's just sitting there wasted. And another family could take advantage of it, but because this might be literally their primary investment vehicle, their biggest nest egg, they maybe don't want to sell it. They just want to see the property value appreciate. They don't want to make a home payment, and and I think that like stuff like that is very bad. Yeah.
Isn't
All right,
Airbnb
dyslexic gamer, cutting in just really quick. Destiny is getting warmed up. Okay, he's taken some heavy losses, and unfortunately, you have not been extended. So go ahead and give yourself. You got about a 1-minute closing or something if you want to wrap yourself up.
all good? I'd just say probably Airbnbs would be the bigger focus to go there if you want to fix. Or I guess no, you're having a problem with it more on a individual level. I just disagree because I think that the forcing people to invest over time is more valuable, just so the middle class has a future, especially since we don't have very good vehicles for that right now. Is probably the most important thing, and that would probably just be my closing thoughts on it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you. The
Thank you
last
so
word,
much
John.
for-
Cool. Yeah. Thanks for chatting.
Yeah.
All right, thank you, buddy. Real quick, Destiny. Another thing you can't do a lot of times is paint. Something as simple as painting when you're in a rental is an issue. I know you say you can just repaint and stuff like that, but like it becomes a whole nother thing. But wall mounting is also a big thing. But anyway,
Buy a fake wall, okay, and then just put it up. You'll live.
okay, Arvind, you are going to be coming up.
Hello.
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 Hi.
What's up?
All right.
Nothing much. What about you?
Nothing much.
Cool.
Go ahead and go with your 1 minute opening.
I mean, I think largely like a lot of like what I would say has already been said before by other people. I think just like the idea that like it would be like a bad financial decision for a lot of people to like own a home doesn't seem very logical to me. And then obviously like you make a lot of arguments about the convenience of living in an apartment. I think there are a lot of conveniences of living in a home as well. So, I mean, I just don't understand like the such large negative view towards owning a home or owning in general. But again, I think a lot of this has already been said, so I don't know what.
Well, we'll focus on one point. We can go into it. Go for it.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah. So I think like owning a home is like a good financial investment if you're gonna stay there for like 5-10 years, obviously, because you're building equity in like some asset that's appreciating. Even if you're paying for that appreciation with like maintenance and stuff, if you do any improvements, that might be like a positive value. And this is just like ignoring the fact that like because of our housing policies, there's a scarcity of homes, so like you're just getting raising value already because of that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree with that. But whatever value increase you see there, you could literally just invest that money in the market, right?
I mean, you can invest in the market, but like you're also getting like a place to live. You're getting very like a tax advantage because of like the deduction of the interest. I mean,
I don't know how many people are getting advantages from the interest deduction. I'm curious what you'd have to spend on a home to overcome, especially now because the standard deduction is like for a married couple, isn't it like $36,000? So you'd have to have over that in itemizable deductions in order to even take that interest deduction, you know?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, and maybe I'd have to look into it more, honestly.
What was the other argument?
I think just largely that like the asset is like appreciating and that you're getting like a place to live on an appreciating asset, which is nice. Like if you're going to stay there like 5-10 years, right?
If
Or
you're going to
even
be there for
longer.
more than 5 years, you can start to make an argument for it. I don't know if it's actually proper to view. I don't know if the problem is. I don't know if you actually can view a housing's. I'm sorry, Jesus. I don't know if a house is an appreciating asset. I don't actually know if that's true. I think houses actually by default. I think in most markets are actually depreciating assets. They require.
What do you mean by like most markets? Sorry.
As in, there might be like an exceptional area where the value of a home will always increase, literally no matter what. But I think in most markets, I think homes are depreciating assets. They require like upkeep and maintenance in order to maintain or increase the value, right?
So like I guess I'm just like familiar with California because I live here like in Los Angeles. Like it feels like house prices are always like going up. Like I've never.
They
like,
are, but
maybe,
there's
like,
also
in
like
public-
there's constant money being poured into those homes as well, though. In order to.
Yeah, but I think
you know.
also part of it is just like a lot of people want to live here. Like a lot of people want to move. Maybe like in last year, maybe California like lost people, but like year over year we're having like population growth, and it's like we're not really like building more houses to match that. Like just by that value, like property prices are going to go up, right? Like it's appreciating.
Yeah, I understand property prices are going up, but when we say that an asset is appreciating, we usually mean appreciating like less the costs that are going into it, right? So, for instance, if I have a car and I'm investing, if I have some asset and I put $100,000 into it, and the price of that asset increases by $80K, like I don't know if I wouldn't call that an appreciating asset. Much the same that for homes, there's like a great deal of monthly, yearly, and whatever your long-term investments into the home, not investments, but there's like upkeep costs that you have to pay in order to maintain the value or increase the value of the home. So I don't even know truly if it is a thing that, if it does appreciate, it's at a very, very, very low rate, I think.
I mean, yeah, I think we'd have to like go into the numbers to actually like figure that out. Then, like, I mean, I don't know how to solve that disagreement without actually looking at that.
Sure. Okay, what other arguments are there?
I mean, there's convenience arguments, I get, but like, I mean, I think that's going to be largely personal preference, right? Like, if you want to like paint on a wall, you can't do that in an apartment. You can do that in a home.
I do agree with that. One of the benefits for homes is that you can kind of do whatever you want with it. Although, yeah, I mean, I would argue that you're paying a premium for it. But I think that's one of the better reasons to own a home if people are aware of that, for sure. Yeah.
Yeah, I think I just read your thing and it came off like way stronger. But like again, I think we're like pretty mostly in agreement anyway. So it's like kind of hard.
Okay.
Oh my god.
Oh my god.
Fight him.
What do you want me to fight on? Give me the point to fight on, motherfucker. Like, what do you mean? Like, believe it or not, if you have like two reasonable people, it's kind of hard to find a point of a disagreement. No, like,
Whoa.
oh my god.
Damn.
So, are you guys in agreement? What's happening?
What's happening? I don't know.
Okay. Well, if you
Okay,
don't
kick
have
me the fuck
anything
out.
else.
Get me out.
Okay. Arvin, thank you for coming
Yeah,
in.
thank you so much. Yeah, thank you for the time.
And have a good day, guys.
Love you, buddy.
Yeah.
Got him. Destroyed.
Okay. Trapinka is going to be coming up, and I actually have a surprise that's going to come towards the end of a friend of the stream. But Trapinka, you are going to be coming up.
Hello.
Hi.
Let me put my camera on. Do you see me? No.
Yep, we could. Hello?
Got him.
Oh.
That counts.
Got
That counts
him,
to win for me.
dude.
Counts to win for me.
Sorry, my whole stuff crashed when I put on the camera.
Oh. Hi.
Okay. So, okay, I don't know if my camera is working or not.
Yep, it's working.
It is. Can you see my face?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay. So I'm actually, I actually have a background in real estate, so I can hopefully push you harder. Okay, so let me go through my opening argument real quick.
Mm-hmm.
So my background is I'm a real estate investor. I buy and rent houses, and I hate that the guy three people back kind of stole my argument, but whatever. My argument is that we have to look at the opportunity cost of renting, and it's that especially it's like the government and the market incentives that are in it for owning are so strong. Like my last sale, the person for less than 15K, they closed on a house that's 300K, right? So let's ignore like any appreciation. Let's just say that the house matches with inflation, and 300K, 3%, that's like 9K a year on a 15K investment. That's a 60% ROI. That's better than any investment you'll ever get in your whole life.
So
But yeah,
I don't disagree with that. There is a semi-sophisticated argument that you can make about the fact that you're appreciating on an asset that you're able to invest in with high amounts of leveraging, especially if you do. I'm familiar with FHA loans. I'm sure there are other preferential loan vehicles.
Yeah, like 2%.
Yeah, that at one point FHA you could do 0% down on some homes.
Oh yeah. Well,
However,
that's a NAFTA, but yeah.
Yeah, the only thing that's scary is I don't know how you guys, I don't know if you work on financing or just like selling the home and signing the papers, but like depending on the type of people buying these homes, I worry about weird, again, distortionary effects that you get people into homes that have huge asset values that don't want to pay taxes on them. So you end up with people who are like the Prop 13 in California or now in Florida, we're like, we got to get rid of property taxes because they're over leveraged on an asset that they probably shouldn't be in. They probably couldn't afford. So that's my first concern. You can address it if you want.
Yeah, I mean, I'm a very, very big proponent of like the whole like abundance movement, and I think like a big part of like, well, California is a little more complicated because that's at the state level, right? But like, I really think that we should take, especially zoning and building, we should take it out of the hands of the local government because the special interests that are working for local governments are like way too strong, and it's gonna take like some like I don't know like it's hard for this when it's like a whole state like deciding that it's like, oh yeah, we're just gonna like fuck property taxes even though it's so distortionary to have like flat or like flat property taxes on the vehicle that's appreciated, but like the more what we should just do, especially for the building, because a lot of people want to build. If we can just at least build out like take out the housing codes and the zoning out of the local government hands and into state or even federal level, then we can do a lot of work. And once you start like building and the property taxes go down, relative to what you're paying, then it should equalize and like kind of work like a market should.
Yeah, I don't necessarily disagree with that. Although that's a different topic. So the second issue about the people that are in assets that they can't afford is that I feel like it's probably not 1-to-1, but the upkeep costs also scale a bit with a larger house. So for instance, my guess is going to be that like getting a new roof or installing a new air conditioner system in like a $200,000 home, it's probably a lot more expensive to do it in $1 million home. Maybe not 5 times as expensive, but at least like 2 to 3 times as expensive. I'm curious, for people that like do crazy leveraging to get into larger homes, are they able to afford all of the maintenance and upkeep costs on those? Yeah.
I mean, that's kind of the whole loaning process. Like the bank's not gonna loan you money for a $1 million house if you make $50K. Like that's like baked into how you get a loan. Like you cannot buy a house that you cannot quote unquote afford.
Yeah, I guess, but for the bank, the only thing they're looking at is generally it's like basically your debt to income ratio, isn't it? Like what percentage of your yeah.
Yeah, and like if you make because the people I work is like lower end. Like if you make like 50, 60K, 70K, you can probably get a 300 house, like 300 something. But yeah, like so to buy $1 million house, you probably have to make way more.
Also, since you're borrowing more money as a percentage of the total asset, the closing costs are going to be quite higher if your down payment is much lower as well, right?
Not really, because there's also like a lot of like government incentives for you to buy a house, and like even the banks, like they give money to the banks, and the banks kind of use that to like incentivize you to buy a house. So like for my last buyer, Chase gave him like a $8,000 like credit towards the closing. So like she paid basically nothing. She paid like I think like she only really had to pay like 10K, but then she put in a 5K just for for lower monthly payments.
I don't know how it works now, but are those tax credits refundable? Like, wouldn't you get that anyway? Like, even if you put in a big down payment or something?
No, because they're not a tax credit. They're credit from the bank.
Oh, okay. If you finance more, aren't closing costs on the loan typically associated with the total amount financed, or is that not?
Yeah. Well, yeah, but it's not that much. Like I said, like for a $300,000 house, the closing costs are going to be like 10K, but then if the bank kind of pays that for you, then you're only going to look at like 2 to 5K, which is not that much.
Okay.
But yeah, I'm also licensed if you want to. If I convince you and you want to buy a house.
Yeah. Do you live in Florida?
Yeah, of course.
Oh, wait, what city?
Well, I'm in Orlando, but I can probably get like a MLS subscription to.
Okay. I might think about a condo soon, maybe. Because I feel like that combines the best of both my worlds, so.
Yeah, you just let me know and I can get a fat, juicy check.
True.
It's crazy. Like 3% of like a $2 million house was that like 60K or something like that. It's crazy once you get into real estate.
How long have you been doing? How long have you had your license for?
Like 3 years, something like that. But I don't use it that much because I'm more into like buying houses for myself, and it's such a good investment. Like especially if you buy them and you do like scumbag shit, like do Airbnbs on them. Oh, so much money.
Do you manage it yourself, or do you have like a property manager or whatever?
I'm the property manager. Like I even manage houses for people who just have the house and they don't want to like take care of it. I do all this shit.
Oh, okay, damn. What do you think your primary money is made from? Is it from the properties you own and the cash flow from them, or is it the cash flow from just being a property manager for properties in general?
I mean, I would be for the property management side, except like the house appreciation is insane. Like the houses I bought in like 2018, 2020 have appreciated by like 500K each, and it's like
are they in?
It's insane.
Are most of them in Orlando or?
Yeah, well, most of them are Orlando. One is in Miami. But yeah. I mean, the Miami that's the one that's like done the craziest.
I hear a lot of people complaining about the housing
500
down here.
Yeah. But yeah, but buying a house is just like it's so smart. Like if you're gonna live in a place for like more than like 5 years, or like 3 or 4 years even, it's just so smart. You're gonna like make a lot of money just off the leverage income.
I think
And
for
all the
I think if
government,
you're
like,
5+ years, yeah, and I think if you factor in the leveraging, I think that can be the case. Yeah, but I just going back to like the taxes and everything. I feel like there are a lot of external negative effects of that because of you're incentivizing people to treat it like a leveraged investment, and the status that you would have of a leveraged investment in society is probably quite a bit different than the treatment that you would want for where people should live. You know what I mean?
Yeah, but I mean that's also like kind of like I said, it's kind of like the special interest problem that arises when you have that, and like a lot more people. I feel like a lot more people are gonna want to a lot more people are gonna want to have build housing being built because there's a lot of people who are like being affected with it. Like I stand to lose a lot from this because all my properties have like appreciated like crazy, but even I want like more houses because I want to buy more houses, you know, because that's kind of my whole business. So I want houses to go down, even though like I would like to lose a lot of money in the process. Just because.
All right, we're gonna give
I
2
want,
minutes.
Okay.
2 more minutes.
yeah. I don't know. What else do you feel about like housing and stuff that you know you feel strongly about? Like that was kind of like my reputation to your thing. Like it just makes so much sense. It's like such
Sure,
a big
I would
ROI.
say I
more
will
than,
say
like,
also
stocks.
you got to be careful too because I think you said you bought most of your property in 2018.
Yeah, 2018, 2020.
So you're
that's
probably
in
sitting on like
2020.
fucking what like 3.25% interest on like all these things.
Oh, well, yeah. Except,
Yeah, so-
except the last one is like 5. But yeah.
Sure, yeah, but so you bought that was like prime. You're like in the best environment, and then you went from
Yep.
super low interest rate environment where your finance really low to interest rates jacking up and demand for housing is still high. So that's putting a ton of upward pricing on housing too. So it was kind of like a perfect entry point in any like sufficiently small time horizon. Like if you can time a market like that, then of course that you're going to be fucking.
Yeah, no, I'm the exception. I'm the exception. I'm not
Sure.
like I'm not saying I'm a rule, but even if you're not, even like looking at like a longer time horizon, like it just still makes sense. But yeah, I'm definitely an exception. And, like that's what I'm saying. Like I'm richer in the sense of like the appreciation, but that's just coincidence, you know.
Yeah.
But like it's still. It still makes so much sense. Like I said, like returns like that, like the leverage that you can get, like 60% ROI. Like if you're in business, you know that's just like insane. That's like not like you look at those numbers and like that's just not real.
Yeah, I mean, yeah. Unless you're talking like a 401k match, you're basically never getting anything like that.
Yeah, well,
yeah.
I consider that like kind of like wages, you know. That's,
No, yeah, I know. I'm just saying an instantaneous appreciation on any kind of investment like that. That's kind of guaranteed. Although then you have to worry about the guaranteed stuff because you're massively overexposed to a single market, and oftentimes in the case of housing to a single or just a few assets.
Yeah,
like if tomorrow a
that's
massive
like a
hurricane
thing.
were to tear through Orlando or something, your shit could be generationally fucked.
yeah,
All
yeah.
righty.
No, that's what. Oh, okay.
Well, here, let him get him his final thing or whatever. Go.
Yeah, go ahead. That's what I was gonna
This
say.
will be
Give
my
your
final
word.
thing. That's in low rate environments. It's almost always better to own than to rent. In high rate environment like this, it's better to rent than to own in terms of cash flow, right? Because you always want to be cash flow positive. Because if you're cash flow positive, that means that no matter what happens to your house, you're gonna be fine because you can write it out because you get more than you're getting. You're getting your things for free. So in a lower rate environment, whenever the rates go low, whenever we go into a recession because of their tariffs, now when the rates go low, you're like, you know what, I'm gonna fucking buy it because that shit's gonna be advantageous for you owning over renting, and then you have a fixed mortgage, so you can just like, you're gonna be fine no matter what. It's even better buy now, but it's even better when.
How did you you get the initial money to buy your properties or whatever?
Well, FHA loans, and I used to work at Wells Fargo in the cash vaults.
What's this?
Good
What,
money.
you stole the money from them, or what?
No, I worked there.
Oh, okay. All right.
Yeah, I processed like business transactions there. And
Gotcha.
that gave me like 15K. Kept it rolling.
Okay.
All right.
All right. Thank you, Trapinka.
Thank you.
Thanks, buddy. I love you.